All right, hey everybody. Welcome to Weekend Warrior Wednesday, which is part inspiration, part group therapy, and entirely for realtors. Because in this business, you don't know until you know, Right?
Truth.
So, truth, absolutely. So today's guest is my friend and realtor extraordinaire, Melissa Stalzer with LPT Realty. Melissa has been selling real estate for 17 years, which is awesome.
Yep.
She actually came from a financing background and worked for a mortgage company prior to making the switch all those years ago, which explains why you are so thorough and knowledgeable with all your customers. But she's originally from New York. She's lived here in Florida for 32 years. And she is mama to a freshman in high school, just like Mike Tyson, Frankie.
Yep.
Also mama to not just one or two, but four fur babies. You've probably seen Swagger Dog in her marketing with his cool sunglasses on. Anywhere you've seen her listing signs or anywhere you see Make Your Move with Swagger.com, that is the source of her inspiration, and she truly is an animal lover. Frankie, all those damn dogs, and her other half, her very own mortgage man, actually our mortgage man too, our director of sales here at Home Team, Chris Barfield, have one of the most fun houses here in DeLand. It is always a great time hanging out with them. And when they're not selling real estate, which is, you do that often, she is a trivia buff. She loves movies and concerts and live shows, and a good brunch. Who doesn't? I know I do. And of course, family time on their boat. So every great now and then you'll sing a little karaoke with me.
Yes, but you're better than I am.
Well, it's speculative.
Yes.
But more often than not, you totally kick my butt. And we have a version of Name That Tune. I don't know if y'all remember that. But we do our own little Name That Tune. She has.
Are we that old? Nobody would remember Name That Tune.
I mean, I think we're the perfect age. We're like vintage.
Okay.
Perfect. But you have such an obscure amount of like random song knowledge in your head. You're so good at that game. But anyway, I asked Melissa to be my guest here today because she was recently awarded or recognized as an award winner for the top 5% of real estate agents right here in Central Florida. So I thought, after 17 years and all that great experience and being a recognized award winner, you would have some great tips to share with our realtor friends. Before we begin, I heard there's a big milestone tomorrow.
There is.
Okay. Want to share with the class?
Going to be celebrating 8 years with Chris Barfield.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is very sweet, but that's not what I'm talking about, you guys. Tomorrow. That is very sweet. I do love you guys. You're like the cutest. But actually tomorrow officially marks $100 million in closed real estate transactions by this beauty right here. So that a round of applause.
Let's hope for tomorrow.
Yes. Fingers crossed the buyer doesn't flake out. It's not our buyer, by the way. She has no listing agent on this one.
Oh my goodness.
So, but anyway, let's start. Let's talk about those tips. Pardon our squeaky chairs. My WD-40 did not, was thwarted by the squeak, but it's fine.
When you go live, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? There's that New York coming out. By the way, we're going to New York this weekend. I don't know. Did Chris tell you?
He did not.
We are taking Tyson to the U.S. Open.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Just on a
He's
whim.
quite the tennis player.
I know.
Because Chris played him, and he's like, whoa.
Well, he beat him, which he was like, Chris beat me.
Then he beat him again.
Yes.
So it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll be there for, I didn't realize at the time, but we'll be there for 9/11, and I'm like super
oh, wow, that's
excited about it. It's so emotional. It makes me want to cry a little bit.
Have you been to the monument? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Be prepared to have some tissues.
You know me, I literally cry at anything.
It's pretty emotional. It will happen, but you got to see it.
All right. Well, I can't wait. I'll take some pictures. Okay, so anyway, back to the top 5 things. I'm sure there's a million things that you can share, but we wanted to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty for the top 5 ways and 5 things as an agent that you need to do that are imperative for achieving 100 million in sales, or that top 5% of your colleagues out there. So what's number 1? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
In my opinion, number 1, first and foremost, is time management. If you do not have time management, you will suffer, and you might get 1 or 2 deals closed, but by the time you have 5 and 6 and 7 on your plate, I am a one-man show.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that? One woman show.
You're allowed to say one woman show.
Whatever. I'm a one person show. And the reality is I like it that way because then I'm responsible for anything and everything that's happening with my transactions.
Yeah.
So you have to have time management.
Okay.
Now there are some heavy hitters out there that will argue, well then you can't do that much more because you don't have admin, you don't have the support. But I have as much volume as I want to take on because I can also give my customers that much more attention.
Right.
But it still boils down to the time management.
Right.
Because if I forget to follow a deadline or a timeline for a home inspection that's coming due, and I know that we're going to have to renegotiate even though we have an as-is offer, because as-is does not really mean as-is anymore.
That's a whole other video.
I need to
come back next week.
I will
for
come
that
back for that. You do need to prepare your sellers for that, but if I forget that today is the deadline for the home inspection results and it comes and goes, there goes my opportunity to renegotiate on behalf of my buyer. So the time management is key. My routine is I get up every morning, I have my cup of coffee, I get my kid off to school, and I am off to the races. I literally am at my email. I'm the kind of girl that if I'm home, I am working. I don't need music, I don't need TV, I'm just like knocking it out.
Me too, same.
Every now and again, I'm gonna do a load of laundry, come back, take care of my dogs. This one's tapping, this one wants to go in, this one wants to come out. I gotta refresh the water, but then I'm right back to it.
That's a lot of dogs.
So yeah, and so the first 4 hours of my day, unless I have a buyer who wants to see a home during those hours or a listing appointment, of course that takes precedent. But otherwise, I'm going to take those 4 hours and I am going to literally take care of all of my customers.
Right.
Whether it be email us to the lender, make sure that we're on track. Do we have a clear to close? I don't know if you guys watch my cartoons, but I'm always like, clear to close, because it matters.
I love that you do that.
I need to know, like, oh, hey, guess what? The appraisal came in and it's overvalued. You know how nice it is to tell your buyer that you're buying a home with $5,000 worth of equity?
It's
very
that's
nice. Not chump change. It's $5,000 worth of
instant equity. Yeah.
So the time management is key for me. Afternoon, if it's my preference, I would then show buyers and sellers homes or do listings because I prefer that 4 hour, 5 hour period where I'm just taking care of business.
Like working in the business.
Working in the business. Not having the business work me, but be like, okay, so who do I need to talk to?
Right.
Who do I need to communicate with?
Right. So maybe you haven't designated like time blocking per se. Like, I don't know, Manny's really big onto like systems and like having a block that you can see with color coding. And I'm like, sometimes you just know what your time blocking is. So it sounds like you might be kind of that same as I am, where like during these times that's what you're doing.
Correct.
But you have a little bit of that fluidity and flexibility to know, if your buyer is like that's the only time they can see it, then
of course I'm like, oh well, I guess my 4 hours is going to move to maybe 12 to 4.
Right.
But the reality is the volume that I do, I need that 4 hours of computer time.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, every now and again I'm on Facebook because I'm going to do one of those cartoons and then I might get distracted, a minute with a new video by Aaron Lewis or something. But then I'm right back to it, It's not like I don't scroll for a second, but I'm not like lackadaisical with my time.
Right, you're intentional about like, I have this much to do in the day. So do you utilize like a CRM? Do you have a transaction coordinator? Or you do all of that?
I do it all.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm old school that way, and we're going to talk a little bit more about one of the top 5 things I believe is the technology and the growing, and I'm still growing after 17 years. My buyers are getting younger, my sellers are getting younger, so I need to catch up. I am catching up, but for now, my old school system is working for me while I do the other. Yeah. But, I basically just give myself constant reminders. You know how like old school people used to put like a ribbon on their finger, like what is this for? But they remember what it was for. I put the ribbon on there. So I'm a list girl.
Yes,
I love to make lists because, and then it's satisfaction to me because Chris is always like, just put it in your calendar. Yeah. And I'm like, no.
And it rolls it out.
I want to wake up every morning and go, I have these 6 things to do besides my email work.
Right.
These 6 things. Like from here, I do have a listing in Orange City, and then I'm going to Lake Mary for another listing in Heathrow. Ooh. And then I'm going to backtrack it and visit one of my listings that I already have that's under contract, but we need an addendum signed. So it's like, I know that I have those things this afternoon, right? Cool. And I will cross them off as we go along because that makes me, it satisfies something in me.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's also nice that you shows your customers that you're a real person, you really care about them, like you're physically going to their house to get them to sign.
Yeah, well, he's an older gentleman, and again, he doesn't want to do the tech, and I'm like, well, I guess you're the boss, right?
I feel like it's 50-50 these days. So as much as I like, sometimes I'm like, all they want to do is text, and it's so odd to me, but I love that sometimes. And then some of them they don't even have an email address, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll
good luck clicking and signing on that.
Come on in, or I'll meet you there. I think the furthest I ever went was like East Orlando to meet with a gentleman who just didn't have any of that stuff. But how else was it going to get done? He still needed to buy a house. So very, very impressive. So time management is definitely key, and sticking to it.
Yes,
that's also key.
Not.
You can't just say, I'm going to do da-da-da-da. Don't just do what you say you're going to do. I wish that could be like the motto of every human being, but especially for realtors. Wouldn't you agree? Doing what you say you're going to do.
When you're going to do it.
Absolutely. Like, just freaking do it.
And then your buyers and sellers, at least mine, have always been impressed by that because, and again, if I'm going to be late, because realtors are
I was going to say time management on realtor time, right?
One time I had this buyer who called me out. I was like, she's like, I notice every time we go to look at a house, you're like, I'm going to be 8 minutes late. And I was like, maybe I should have 8 minutes late real estate. I don't know, but it was always, I'm not 10 minutes late.
8 minutes
it's not
late.
Going to be 5. I'm like,
so
8 minutes late. Because I was always like that. And so when she called me out, I laughed, she laughed. And, I never not showed up, but I was always communicating with her. I am running late. And usually it's because I forgot to put gas in my car. And now I'm like, I have to stop, right? Because you can't run out of gas.
I mean, I have
that's a pet peeve of mine.
Actually,
I hate pumping gas. I just hate it. But
me too.
But yeah, so do what you say when you're going to do it. They're happy even if it is 8 minutes late. I mean, what's the reality? Sometimes she was late, and then I would be like, "You get a pass, of course."
Well, that was one of the other things that you put on your list when we did like a little preemptive thing. Communication, that is key because you can be 8 minutes late with effective communication. So tell me a little bit more about what that means for you.
Perfect. I have an example.
Okay.
So I recently acquired a buyer. He was a very nice man. His name's John. And the first phone call we had together, he said, and I quote, "I do not like to text message. Like, please do not text message me."
Heck yes,
and
I love that.
Effective communication is remembering that John does not want me to text message him. And so I realized in this really crazy world that we live in that I talk to text and we're always on the go, we're so quick, we're so fast. I feel like, if I gave you an update by text, we communicated. But it wasn't effective for him.
Right.
Because he was like, please don't do that.
Right.
And so sometimes though, I would, if he called me, I would shoot a text and say, I'm in a closing, or maybe I'm in a podcast. I can't answer him right now. So I would say to him, hey, I'm so sorry I missed you, but I will call you when I'm done. And I would always call him back. Right. And then sometimes he would remind me, like, I really don't like texting. And I said, I hear you loud and clear. I do. But you have to understand that I can't always pick up the phone.
I knew to tell you.
Yes, that I was going to call you when I'm done. Otherwise, if I didn't at least communicate that, then I felt like he thought I was ignoring him.
Correct.
Right? And so then what he started to do, which I thought was pretty awesome, is instead of texting me, he would leave me audio messages.
That's
in a text.
I
So
love that.
he would record and then send, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's effective communication. So now we're like recording each other back and forth, but it worked for him. And the transaction closed, and he just didn't want to have to maybe text. I don't know.
That's so funny. So I wonder if he just doesn't know. I only say this because I just got a new phone and I could not figure out for the longest time like how to do talk to text because it kept doing that, recording things. I'm like, what is happening? So I had to go in the settings and change it from that. So maybe he just had a phone that he didn't know. Either way, you got to hear his lovely little voice messages all the time.
Yes, all the time. And then at
really
the end, when we closed, I was like, well, I won't text you, but I'll call you in a few weeks, see how things are going. And he had a very sweet mom, and she was older, and there's going to be like a multi-generational living situation.
Nice, yeah.
So anyway, I've kept in touch with them. He's recently reached out to me to ask me if I had somebody that I could recommend for install of ceiling fans. And of course, after 17 years, I do have somebody who can install ceiling fans. Yeah.
You got a guy, yeah.
So effective communication, it matters. And again, my older folks, if they want me to stop by and with, I can't get frustrated at that. I'm not going to be like, no, you must learn Form Simplicity or DocuSign or we can't do business together.
Right.
Who has time for that? I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just run over and take care of it.
Right. I think it's one of the things I talked to my newer realtors about is convenience, and you don't work at a convenience all the time. That's one of the hardest things I think for people to get used to in real estate or being in the business of an entrepreneur is if you don't go and do the work, you're not getting paid. So like sometimes, as much as it might be inconvenient for you to drive to wherever to get an initial, you must do that because that is just part of the gig. And
it is, and it's often these days very rare.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, if I have to do it once a week, I'm like, well, it's par for the course.
Yeah.
I have all these other buyers and sellers who are willing to, just email it to me, Melissa. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And that's effective communication too, because if you don't want me to ask you how your day is or how your dogs are or how your kids are at college, no problem.
Oh my God, I know.
I'll just be like this. Okay, bye, Mr. Jones. Nice talking with you again. Thank you for clicking and signing. If you don't have time for me, I get it.
Yeah.
Just have time for the transaction.
Absolutely. When I bought my car, I was like, I love you. You're great. Like you've been on it, but I just give me the sausage. I don't care how it's made. I just deliver it and get out of here, you know? And so that is also important. Knowing and reading your client and reading how they want to communicate is super duper important. How about effective communication with the other agent in the transaction?
Huge. listen, I don't know, you younger agents out there, if you want to make it in this business, you must communicate with the listing agent. You
Play nice in the sandbox.
You are working together. You may be an individual like myself working for yourself, but if you don't work with the other party in that transaction, it is going to be hellacious getting to the table.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like
It doesn't have to be that way.
It's a really exciting, fun process, and together as professionals, you get to do it together. Now, you do have to negotiate, so you have to. You still have to be the negotiator and poised. But
never raise your voice. Don't scream at the people. I could be loud, but I'm not yelling at you. I'll be yelling about something, but I really feel like the attitude sometimes will throw a deal.
It will throw a deal. It's totally unnecessary, and then ultimately what happens is that client, whether it's the buyer or seller, they're gonna just embody that persona, and they're gonna start.
Yeah. Now if I'm like everything's a problem, now they think, oh my god. And for me, again, if I have an as-is, we'll just touch on that real quick. I say to my seller, it's my listing, right? Hey, listen, we're going to solicit this as is. We're going to market it that way. I'm going to bring you an as is. I promise you. I'm going to disclose up front everything you tell me, that your roof is 20 years old and your air conditioners are 18 years old. You have 2 of them, right? You have a little bit of wood rot. And you know what? The buyers are still going to bring me an as-is offer because that's what it says. Right? But then we're going to do the home inspection. And even though we disclose the 20-year-old roof and the 18-year-old air conditioning and the wood
write
rot,
an as-is contract.
they will go, well, we didn't know that also your appliances, and now we also found that the outlets aren't working, whatever their reasoning is. And now I have to go back to my seller and I'm like, guess what? And I promise you, they're never angry because I've prepared them. This is going to happen. Now, do you have to do anything about it? No. That's the beauty of it. If you look at me and go, I don't care. You have an as-is contract, then that's when I'm going to go back to the buyer's agent. But if you prep them, and I mean just giving them the knowledge that you have, that this is likely going to happen, when I say, hey, would you contribute $2,000, towards closing? Because if you do, we don't have to put the house back on the market with another set of concerns from a different buyer.
You don't have to.
We don't have to make another mortgage payment if you have a mortgage. You don't have to take time out of your day to take your dog so that the people can come back and forth. So to me, I don't like to use the term throw money at it, but a $2,000 concession to move the transaction along is absolutely, I'm not a financial advisor, but it makes more sense to me than paying a $4,000 mortgage and having to disclose the same issues to the next customer.
Well, I think it's super important to know the numbers and know the math of it all. I can't tell you how many agents that I talk to that are listing agents or have listings, I should say, who have literally no idea what the seller's net is.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, well, how are y'all negotiating? I mean, like, what is happening?
Yeah, they're not always. There's usually a bottom line for the seller. So I have a net sheet that I like to use. There's apps that you can download. I mean, one of the things I do at my listing appointment is say to them, if you'd like to share with me your mortgage payoff, I can go ahead and tell you right now exactly what you'd walk away with. By the way, do you have a second mortgage? Did you take out a line of credit? Did you not make your mortgage payment in the last year and now it's tacked to the end because all of that matters?
Oh my gosh, so many people did that.
They think it's in their principal. And again, young realtors starting out, or maybe someone who's never dealt with that's like, I wouldn't know to ask that. And then you go to the table and they owe another $50,000.
How about, this has been really huge lately, solar panels. Who is selling solar? They're doing a great job, y'all.
They really are.
But honestly, it's been 15 transactions.
And they're like, oh, well, it's transferable. I'm like, yes, but now the buyer has to qualify with that payment.
That $216 or whatever.
In addition to their, if they have the student loans, the car loans, the house, whatever debt they have, now they're inheriting your debt.
Correct.
So it's a hard sell. But when it comes to the team player part of it and the other realtors, again, I like your analogy of playing nice in the sandbox, but I have a really good example that came up.
Oh, team player, that is your next one, yes.
So I have the seller, as is contract.
Yes.
Buyer's agent came to me during inspections, we're still within that window, and she indicated that, in order to move forward, the buyer had to have $2,000 towards closing.
Right. It happens.
And I said, okay, I understand. I went back to my seller. He was one of those, no. And I said, okay.
Yay.
So I went back to the buyer's agent and I said, listen, my seller is not going to budge on this and we have an as is, and I don't want to say, well, send me the release and cancel, because really, how is that working together?
Right.
There are some agents out there who are like, well, that's what I would do because I need to move on and get this house sold.
Right.
But for me, again, I was like, well, how could we fix this maybe? So I said, listen, the commission at this point was 6% even split. I was like, so I know it's not my customer, but in the interest of customer service, what if I met you halfway? I'll credit $1,000, you credit $1,000 from the commission. By the way, you got to have your broker's approval. And if you do that, now your buyer can move forward knowing that we can get the transaction closed.
Right.
In my eyes, you would be looking very good and
You look like a superhero.
an angel, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, and for me, why would I come up myself $1,000? Because in the interest of my seller, even though he was stubborn, do I want to put the house back on the market, not know what the next offer is going to be?
Right.
Could be less, could
Correct.
be more.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, let's get the transaction moving. That's how come I do so much volume. And it's not that I'm giving it away. It's just that what makes sense.
Well, you're a problem solver.
Right.
And it's the problem, the solution isn't always throwing money at it, but it's always looking for a way to find that solution. I think that's probably one of your best attributes.
And her response was, you can't take my commission.
Oh, golly.
And I said, whoa, first of all, it's the my broker's commission that we negotiated with the seller, and you will receive it at the table. And yes, in the MLS, it is advertised as such, but until we close, that money's not actually yours.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I said, so I'm trying to help here. I was like, so here's what happens though. If you credit $1,000 and I credit $1,000 and I don't have to do that.
Right.
And if you don't, I said, now your buyer, you have to drive them around, find another house with another set of conditions. And by the way, they've already paid for inspections at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So now you want them to pay for inspections again, and not knowing in that transaction if the seller is going to be negotiable.
Right.
I said, so if you do the math of driving the people around, the gas being what it is, the cost of home inspection, septic inspection in
The
this
market
case,
for what it is, the inventory.
everything.
Yeah.
And again, that house isn't going to be perfect either.
Yeah, there are no perfect houses.
And she said, I won't do it. And I said, okay.
Holy cannoli.
So she sent over the release and cancel. My seller wasn't upset because he was like, I was never doing the $2,000 anyway.
Right. You're like,
I'm like, okay. So by the way, I got the house back on the market, got it sold, But for me, I'm thinking 3% of a commission less $1,000 is a lot better than what may or may not be on the other side.
Yeah, bird in the hand, baby.
Because what if that buyer's like, you know what, you didn't make that work for me and I'm not going to work for you anymore.
Correct. Yeah, there's
now you just lost the sale.
Correct. Yeah.
So, again, at the end of the day, I feel like even if it's not my customer, but it's the interest of my customer, let's just do it. Let's get it done.
Yeah, let's sell some real estate.
Yeah.
Let's sell $100 million in real estate.
Yeah, and I feel like that particular realtor, I think her buyer at the end of the day would have been like raving.
Oh my God, you would definitely have a client for life, or a customer for life is what you guys call them now. So that would be amazing for sure. So one of your top 5, which I find hilarious because I'm your Chris and me are your technology.
Working on it.
But technology. Tell me about technology and how effective it is in real estate and being successful in real estate.
So it's huge right now because, again, our buyers and sellers are getting younger, and even our older customers are learning like me. I mean, you have to learn eventually or you're just going to be phased out.
Correct. Smoke signals do not work in real estate.
The beauty of LPT, of course, the listing power tools, you get the QR code, you get the marketing, you get the support that way.
Right.
I don't need the admin, but I like that marketing part of it.
Right.
So to me, the tech is the marketing because, again, I'm a little bit slow or behind on having like Chime or,
you have to use Chime. It's amazing.
I'm going to
also love
I'm going to get to it. I'm selling houses.
But that's okay. I've got a class coming up September 22nd. It is Skyrocket Your Success with Chime training.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it Zoom?
No, it's live in person, and I think I'm going to do hot lunch.
Okay.
I love a hot lunch. Good old Olive Garden.
If you had said brunch, then I would have been there. But
I'm kidding.
I'm kidding.
You know what? I haven't sent out the mailer yet. But either way, you should definitely come. But yeah, I was so excited that after 17 years, I did it. I got you to not have a CFL.rr.com email.
I still have it because I can't.
I know.
Get rid
you
of
can't
it.
part with it. Of course not. But you finally have your Melissa at MakeYourMoveWithSwagger.com.
Correct.
I love Make Your Move with Swagger.
She also helped me with my business cards.
Yeah, I love doing that.
That's because I had to do it through an app called Canva, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, now you want me to learn Canva. So again, it's always learning, but then I have to pick my battles on what I want to learn first.
Right.
That's part of that 4-hour do.
I think you also have to constantly assess your skill sets. Whatever is in my wheelhouse, I feel like it's more effective for me to spend that time on. Hence why the marketing mama is, now bigger than the mortgage mama because I'm really good at marketing. And so I do it effectively for so many, of my agents, and I love it.
She's like, I love learning all the things.
I know. I'm like, I want to do it all. I love it. It's like, it makes me happy to make that stuff come to life. So learning technology, not being afraid of it.
Yeah, don't be afraid of it. I mean, you might put it off for a minute, Again, I'm like a tasker, so it's kind of like hard for me to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, in my wheelhouse, if I have these 4 hours mapped out to make sure that my timelines, my deadlines, my buyers and sellers' needs are being met, the lender's doing their part, right? The appraisal's good. I'm like, oh, chime. Yeah, I do need to learn that. And I will. I will. But it's like today, not today.
I'll give you a crash course on it. What I love about that chime, this is definitely a shout out for LPT Realty. I'm sorry, not sorry. But the chime AI is so good. I swear to God, we had a buyer ask, I think it keeps showing like our mouths going crazy. There must be like a filter on this. But we had a buyer who, it's going to drive me crazy. We had a buyer who asked when they could meet Anna, who is the chime auto AI bot.
Okay.
That's how good it is.
There's an AI bot?
Yeah, that responds. So I'm just saying, super busy. You should come to that September 22nd class. I'll give you all the good deets on it. I do think there's like a filter stuck on it.
I think it might be that one that that comedian, Anthony Rhodesia, I think his name is.
Oh yeah, look at it. Oh yeah. Okay. Even better.
Has that been happening the whole time? That's
probably. That's awesome.
That'd be hilarious.
That is hilarious. Well, par for the course. So technology. Now, your last bit made me so happy because I'm a huge proponent of this. I always say ABL, always be learning. What is the number 5 thing to be a successful agent for as long as you've been successful and to achieve, that success that you've, 100 million in sales? What is the 5th thing that you wanted to share with the gang?
The continuing education, but I don't mean the book stuff.
Okay.
I mean, you need it for your state license.
Right.
And it is a requirement and it is imperative. But that's not what I mean by continuing education. Every transaction is going to be different. You're going to have 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, same street, same year built, but the buyers and the sellers for each transaction are going to be different, right? So you need to know what kind of buyer am I working with? And again, some people say, well, I don't want to wear that hat. I'm not in the mortgage industry. But again, if that buyer is an FHA buyer or a VA buyer, there are specifics about the property, the house itself.
Right, because the property has to also qualify for financing, not just the borrower.
Correct. And, if you have a well and septic too close together, the guideline for FHA and VA is not going to allow for that, okay? So then on that particular house, I'd be soliciting conventional buyers. And it's not that I want to discriminate against my veterans, love you guys, but it's the program. The VA is not allowed for it, yes. So when you look at that, you're like, listen, it's not you, it's the property. And there's not much I can do about it. And then again, educating your seller. And then so some realtors again are like, well, how am I supposed to know that? Well, you're not going to know it day one because they might teach it to you in the real estate school. By the way, the guideline for septics and well is 75 feet, right? Or 100
Right.
feet. You might not retain that.
Yeah.
But if it kills a transaction of yours, you're going to remember it.
Yeah, here's how I remember 100 years ago, the first time I learned about here's my rule of thumb. No naked walls, no naked wires, no naked floors. That's like basic.
I'm like put some indoor-outdoor carpet down. You gotta have something.
Nothing naked in there. But I learned that because the appraiser had to come back for a light switch. I was like, are you kidding me? You're charging my client like $150 or whatever because the light switch cover wasn't there. Well, that is the FHA guidelines is you can't even have that light switch. You have to cap if they've taken down a ceiling fan, cap it.
Yep. And then you remembered it.
It is so funny. It's doing that. I love it. Manic Wednesday, as always, whatevs. So yeah, but retaining those things, you never know until you know. And I think I've said this 100 times. You might not even encounter that for like another 10, 20, however many transactions, but sort of retain it. And so then that way you know, hey, oh my gosh, if a mobile home doesn't have
tie-down straps
or a real estate title, if it has a vehicle title, it's going to cost extra money to get that moved over.
And you have to have an engineer.
You have to have an engineering report. You have to have all these things. And I think that's probably the most fun thing about this job is that you do have to learn all the time. And so while you learn on the job, constantly be learning in the job. And I think obviously you have a lot of pillow talk with your mortgage man. So you probably have a little bit more insider info than most, but definitely, understanding that you have professionals that you partner with, that you talk to your home inspector, find out like what's good in home inspections, or what are we seeing these days?
Well, it's fun because I feel like every decade there's always something, right? So in the 60s it was the cloth wiring, right? Don't have cloth wiring. In the 70s, it was lead-based paint, right? In the 80s, it was knob and tube or whatever it was. And then in the 90s, it was Chinese drywall.
Chinese drywall is like so
now there's
big.
an addendum for it, right? And then
Correct.
mold has always been around, But the reality is like, somebody will go in and go, oh my God, I didn't realize we were going to have, polybutylene pipes. That was the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
How many houses have I sold with poly pipes? Many.
Like a lot.
Tons and
Because
tons. In Deltona, it was like the boom. That's when a lot of builders were coming out, and that's the product that was available at the time.
Right.
So how do you combat that? You know, again, if I sit down with a seller, I'm like, do you think you have poly pipes? I don't know. Well, I need to know that because do I have to know that? No, I guess the buyer could figure it out. But if I know it up front, I'm saving everybody a lot of time and energy.
Right.
And I know what to look for basically, but I would still trust the experts.
Right.
I'm going to call my home inspector and go, can you tell me if these are poly pipes?
Right, because you sell homes, you don't inspect homes. I always tell people, like, I don't inspect homes, I don't appraise homes.
I mean, I'll do a CMA,
Yes.
a market analysis, but no, I'm not an appraiser.
Absolutely.
And they're not all created equal.
100%. Like,
no.
literally, the same property could have 15 different values depending on who was taking a look at it. What's so funny is you say that I had a kind of a CMA class with a group of agents like 3 weeks ago. And, you know, obviously as a lender, we have access to handfuls of appraisals. And so just for fun, one of them is like, well, isn't there just like a stock, like this amount that you adjust? And I'm like, no, not at all. I wish there's not. No. If there was, like, it would be, don't you think it'd be kind of commonplace or known? Because just like you said, every house is not created equal. That same 1,900 square foot house in a different location is going to have a different valuation. That same 1,900 square foot house with a pool is going to have a different value. You know what I'm saying? There's so many variables in real estate that you can't possibly know all the things, but it helps to know what you're getting into. Long story short, we had 4 different appraisals, and for every one of them had a different adjustment for a half bath and a full bath and an extra
screen porch.
Every single
and
one had
garage.
and they were like, what do we do? I'm like, you do your best, and you really put some thought into it, and you make adjustments and whatnot. CMA is like we could do a whole other video on that.
You could, and I have a saying for my sellers every time when I go to when I do a comparative market analysis, and I say this is what I believe it to be, and I can support these numbers with any appraiser.
Right.
But they're going to do their own homework, and they're going to do their own adjustments. So what I say to them, and I mean it, is that an appraiser, or appraisal, is not a science. It is an art.
Amen. Yes.
They are not going to equate anything the same. So there's no math, there's no science involved. It is legitimately what they believe, again, what a redone bathroom would be worth versus
in that market of that year.
Or that particular neighborhood. Let's talk Victoria Park, one of the biggest, right?
Right.
So if I have 5 houses within Victoria Park built by the same builder all around the same time, reasoning is that, price per square foot should equate. Okay? But if you go, I don't know, 2 miles down the road into Westminster Woods or, Bent Oaks or Longleaf Plantation, it's not the same. They're not the same. It's not the same association, even if it was the same builder.
Right.
Victoria Park is specific to Victoria Park.
Right. Lot sizes are one way.
Glenwood DeLand is pretty indicative of Glenwood DeLand, and then you've got, again, houses within Longleaf Plantation are not going to be weighted the same maybe as our counterpart Bent Oaks, which is right across the street. But yeah, so the appraisers, I don't envy them. I feel bad for them trying to figure out the numbers.
It's a tough gig.
It is. And then you got people mad at you all the time, because they're trying to maybe look out for the buyer, like my VA. Again, there's a term called Tidewater. Again, you're going to keep learning.
Tidewater.
Yeah, so if you have a VA contract and the appraiser calls you and the first thing he says is Tidewater, it basically means he cannot find the comps, or she cannot find the comps to support whatever the buyer and seller agreed to.
I honestly wish that every appraiser would call it Tidewater if they wanted it. Like, wouldn't that be so much better than getting like an appraisal back that's like $20,000 lower? Like,
without any
like, can you help me support that? Well, and then as a listing agent, it would be reasonable to assume that you could possibly share your comps, help a sister out, help a brother out, whatever. Because again, we're all humans trying to sell real estate.
So again, for me, after 17 years, I don't provide comps. I tell my seller, if they ask me, I have these comps.
Yeah.
But I feel like the appraisers, and I've never had one say that they wanted me to provide it, unless it was a VA Tidewater situation, right? Let's say we have a conventional contract and we're under contract for $450. I expect the appraiser who's getting paid $550 to do that appraisal
or
has the knowledge to be able to find the comparables.
Well, you would hope. You
would think. So I've had some realtors like, no, I show up and I give them my comps, and I'm like, well, for me, I feel like they might be like, are you doing my job? Like, why are you doing that? I have my own opinion. I mean, I
or maybe it would alert them, like,
yeah, should I be looking for something?
Is this like, did you way over?
So unless they say to me, hey, Melissa, where did you and the seller come up with this figure?
Right.
I'm ready. Because I already did the work.
Right.
But I'm not going to be like, hey, here's what I think it's worth. I mean, we're under contract for this amount. It's what you think it's worth.
Right,
really.
where they come with like $1 million, like a shoebox full of receipts.
Oh my God.
I did all of this work.
Yeah.
It's still not worth that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm with you. I don't envy an appraiser, that's for sure.
No, I don't.
So as far as continuing education goes, do you like, and you know a lot obviously about our local market here in West Volusia especially, but do you like spend time weekly like reviewing the numbers of like what houses are selling for, or kind of how quickly things are on the market? And do you have any
I have
guidance
myself,
with that?
anybody who has the MLS, well, of course, if you're a licensed realtor, you're within the MLS if you belong to a board, right?
Right.
So I have myself on about 50 auto lists.
Oh gosh, your
So you know
hot
what-
sheets are like super hot.
So when you create a buyer or seller, right, you create an auto list for whatever they want to buy and sell. And so I will be like, oh, if I'm going to sell over in Victoria Trails, I'm going to create myself an auto list to see what's happening in Victoria Trails. I can easily pull the numbers for that neighborhood when I do a CMA. But I like to wake up with my morning coffee and I'm like, oh, look what just hit the market, or look what just sold. Because
See
if
what's
it pens
happening
or
with it.
sells, I also get notified.
Yeah.
So it's constant. Now, do I do that for all of Central Florida? No. I am Central Florida realtor, but
Yeah.
my own backyard, I feel like I should know.
Well, and where you are doing the bulk of your business, obviously.
Right.
Now that you've got this new listing in Heathrow, is that the one that we're doing the filming and everything tomorrow?
No, that listing won't be live probably until October.
Oh, okay, cool.
But the one we're doing on Thursday tomorrow is in Glenwood.
Oh,
So
I'm
I'm
excited.
excited about
I'm
that one.
excited about that too.
Yeah.
I might come with me. I don't know. We'll see.
You should come.
I should come.
Come take a look.
I'll come. Maybe we'll be on film without the big giant mouth thingy or whatever.
It's going to be a start.
Yeah, but that is important, I think, to review your hot sheets. That's one of the things I love about math in general, which is odd to say, is I never thought I would love math, but after doing mortgages for the past decade, I'm like, math doesn't lie. It's not magic. It's math. And so I loved, even as a realtor, like looking at those hot sheets and being an expert and being able to combat a low ball offer with stats, like with actual numbers. That's the best negotiating tool that you can possibly have.
So in my arsenal, for instance, I'll have a seller be like, I'm going to sell this house. Is it as hot as it was? And I'll say, I'll give you an example. Just the land. I'm not talking Orange City, DeBerry, Deltona, Lake Helen. The land. In April, we had about 148, 152, depending on the day, homes in inventory.
Active.
Including condos, townhouse, active, right.
150 total?
Yeah, at the time. Now, fast forward, September. Actually, I did the numbers in August, to be fair, but it was like 300 and something. Which
Well,
is,
that's promising.
it is for the buyers, because
Yeah.
now they're not having to deal with the multiple offer
But for the
situation.
sellers,
But what I'm
it's
trying
like,
to
now
explain to my
you're-
sellers,
right.
you're not going to now have one of 10
Right.
offers. Not that ship has sailed. It still can happen.
It still can't happen.
But
yeah.
the reality is, look at it that way. In a quarter,
Right.
in a 4-month window.
good old supply and demand.
Yep, because I did April to August. I know this because I was running those figures.
Yep.
Otherwise I'd have to go back and, figure, which I could, just redo the
Yeah,
dates.
but why not set up a hot sheet?
Yeah.
Knowing that that's like
That's what
your
I need to know.
wheelhouse and that's where you're trying to be, and you're spending the marketing dollars and you're going in there and you're farming. And honestly, if you are listing with LPT, you get those awesome power packs that come equipped with the do you hang up the door hangers?
I don't.
You don't? You should pay Frankie and Tyson to do it. I bet they would do it.
They probably would.
They're just so
But then you have
impressive.
like the no soliciting, and next thing those boys are being chased off.
I know. Well, they're rule followers, so they will be.
But I do digital flyers.
Yeah.
Like I'll do again on the social media aspect of it. So I haven't had the need to do the door hangers yet, but that doesn't mean that won't be something that I would have to implement, in the future, because
Yeah.
this market, as you know, is going to continue to change. There's nothing we can do to stop it.
It's always
and so
evolving.
if door hangers is where it's going to be at, then Melissa Stalzer is going to be hanging door hangers.
Amen.
That's just the way it is.
Evolve or die, I always say. You go out there and chase that money, girl. Well, thank you, Red, for being. I wore red for you today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Red,
That's
did
very
you
nice.
notice?
I wore heavy earrings for you.
Oh my God! Yay! Perfect. They look like chandeliers. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for being my guest today. As always, a wealth.
I'm sure we're going to have a good time maybe laughing at this.
At the I love it. That's too funny. That's hilarious.
Maybe not use that filter in the future.
I didn't even know
know
that I clicked it. See, going back to technology, I have to go back to my cfl.rr.com email. Send myself a reminder. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
But thank you so much. If you guys want to buy or sell real estate here in Central Florida, please contact Melissa Stalzer, $100 million plus producer at makeyourmovewithswagger.com. Show them the shirt, girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, money, baby. All right, guys, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye-bye. There's a filter. Chris is so funny.